Greetings, everybody, and welcome to another BMF Discussions podcast. I'm your host, Richard Billy Jr., and tonight I'm joined by Miss Dana Abercrombie. How's it going, Dana?
It is going wonderful. I'm very excited to be here and talk about another episode that did not disappoint. Gave me what I wanted. It gave Charles what he wanted. Gave Mabel what she wanted. Except for Lucille. She didn't get what she wanted.
Oh, well, Lucille did get what she wanted, but we're gonna see what happens after this episode for sure.
Nope. Yeah, it is right. She did get. It was
Yeah,
sad. But yes, she
yeah,
got it.
yeah. So I agree. Very interesting episode. Of course, tonight we're going to be talking about BMF season 2, episode 5, Moment of Truth. So before I get into asking the questions, I think I wanted some initial impressions. So you said that you thought this was an excellent episode.
hmm
Okay.
I
Yeah.
so right off the bat for me, I just loved everything kind of about it. In terms of we finally got the whole situation with Mabel, that I will get into, but I was pleased with. We also got an update on Denise because it's really easy to kind of throw away characters and not come back to it. So it's nice to see that there's still an update with Denise, and that Denise is going to eat the charge. She's a ride or die. So yay for Denise. She didn't have to be, but she really is, and she stuck that out. And again, I'm still upset that they caught Denise so early in the game. I wanted this to be like I said before, like a an army of white people that they go to different states and transport the drugs, but that's what we didn't get. So I'm still sad about that. And one of the other things that obviously stood out was the whole Lamar situation. But again, we got a really interesting dynamic with Lamar, in the community in terms of him getting that respect back. Because remember, there was a cheeseburger incident, and he got all the cheeseburgers and the fries, and poor Alvin is just sitting here hungry. So we did get that dynamic that I really did love. And we also got some more of the backstory with the cops. And so they're just slowly filling in the blanks and making these characters more well-rounded, and the side characters well-rounded as well.
I agree. I agree. Um, as for my initial impressions, I also thought it was a good episode. I really like how they portrayed Atlanta. Obviously, I live in Atlanta right now. I'm in Boston visiting family, but
hmm
I like how they portrayed Atlanta. We know that the bands are very big down in Atlanta, so I like that they had the scene where you saw them going to that campus, and they were watching a performance. So stuff like that was great. And they've also captured the shystiness of how some people operate in Atlanta as well, because even to this very day, there's a lot of crooked stuff that happens there as well. So I love that they put that in the episode. Um, and yeah, we'll get into some of the things that you discussed, because there are a couple of questions that we are going to have. But I thought overall was a good episode. I think the season has been good. I know there have been some people leaving comments complaining about some of the stuff in the show, where how some stuff may seem a little unrealistic. But I would say again, as I said, this show is meant to be for entertaining purposes, and they tell you at the very beginning that some of this stuff might have happened, but it might be dramatized. They tell you that with the disclaimer in the beginning, so you have to go into it knowing this and look at it to just enjoy it for the experience of what it is. So
And what's also really interesting is that when we have criticism for like the power shows about it being unrealistic, we would get long dissertations about how we are unable to suspend our beliefs. So it's
yep,
interesting coming into this show how it's like, this is unrealistic. And I'm like, let's just go with it.
yeah,
Oh, and
exactly,
one other thing
exactly.
I wanted to add really quickly. We got the return of Monique on TV. So we all know
Yes,
that situationship. So yeah, it was nice
I
to see
think
her.
it was nice to see her. I like her as this character. I think she did an excellent job. So
hmm
I'm looking forward to seeing where things go. I know we're currently at the halfway point in the season, so I'm very curious to see what happens in the next 5 episodes. But yeah, I did enjoy her coming back, and I enjoyed everything that happened in the episode. So makes me very curious to see what happens next.
Yes.
Yes. So on that note, we're going to dive right into the questions that I had prepared for this particular episode. In no particular order, but we are going to jump around on some things. but y'all already know that how we operate. So my first question coming out of this episode, I'm going to get to the juicier questions a little bit later, but I want to get to this one first. Uh,
Mhm.
we did see in this episode that Detective Bryant's son was being bullied at school, and he approached B-Mickie with telling him, "I need you to do me a favor." And of course, we saw the favor was that B-Mickie confronted the guy that was bullying his son and beat him down. So the question I have after seeing that was, uh, is B-Mickie growing closer to Detective Bryant? Is this going to help in their whole in Detective Bryant's whole plot of trying to take down Meech? So what are your thoughts on that?
I can see how one can say that, but also B-Mickie looks miserable every time he has to carry out something for Detective Bryant. So no. But I will say that it was a very smart tactic on Bryant's part because you can see the love that he has for his son, and he still respects his boundary of, he screwed up with going to the principal, but he respects his boundary of we're not going to take it any further. And he was able to scope out the kid and basically lay down justice wrongfully, but he laid down the justice so that he can get his son can kind of stay safe while being at school. What's interesting is how you see the parallel between how he's willing to get B-Mickie to beat up this kid, and how he also treats, remember we've seen other people that he's arrested and beat down, you kind of see very forcefully. So you see this mindset that he has of anyone that he views as the enemy, how he'll just either attack them or get someone to attack them for him. I do not think that they're growing closer. I do think that this is a relationship that is scratch my back. I don't want to go to jail, so I'm going to scratch yours. There's still a level, maybe of fear with him. So I don't see this coming into a Tariq Kanan situation, but more of I'm afraid of you. Please don't send me to jail, or what's going to happen with my grandmother or mother situation.
I think that's a very good point. I know that in the previous episode, Detective Bryant was trying to basically tell B-Mickie, "Oh, we're family now because you are going to eventually turn on Meech. I'm going to make sure I do everything in my power to make sure you give them up." So I kind of feel like what we did see in the previous episode when Terry was talking with Meech and they had their
Mhm.
discussion when Meech got out of the hospital and he was listening to what Terry's plan was, you saw that B-Mickie was very
Mhm.
jealous of that conversation because he didn't feel as though he was able to chime in and give his own thoughts as to what Meech should do. So I kind of feel like that was planting some seeds that he could definitely potentially turn on
Hmm.
Meech later. But again, I guess we have to wait and see how it plays out because uh, it's just B-Mickey's in a very tough situation now. But eventually, when they find out, um, B-Mickie is a dead man. So
Right. But here's also another thing with this. It may not be the one who would Detective Bryant is the one who turns him against Meech. It's his own jealousy of Terry, which to me seems weird because that is his brother and they know how close they always were from the very beginning of season one. Just because his brother stepped away to go with the car business and not do the drug industry at that moment, it does not mean that they're not brothers anymore and there's not going to be that closeness and he's not going to always fill him in. So to me, I think it's more of maybe like an ego situation that would get him to turn. Secondly, and maybe I hope this is true, he could be a red herring and he's not the one who ends up flipping at all. Maybe it's another character that they bring in that no one is paying attention to, or a character that's already been there that no one has been paying attention to that causes that flip. So we'll see what happens. But I really don't want it to be Mickey because that's too much on the nose, and it's something like, oh, it's bound to happen. So I like if there was a red herring aspect, but if it does not end up being a red herring, I don't want it to be because of the relationship that he has with Detective Bryant, but because of the ego and because of how he's viewing Terry and not that close relationship that he had with Meech.
I agree.
And then also remember the group is going to get bigger because remember it goes way more than Atlanta and it goes into the music industry. And so when you have an incorporation of more people, I wonder how Terry is going to start feeling. Is it a situation where I have been here since day one and you're treating me like Tony Khan, so I'm going to leave? Or is this a situation where, you know, it's again, you have too many people and too many different outreaches with the gang itself, so it ends up being someone else who turns.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I look forward to seeing what's happening, what happens next per se. Um, but yeah, for those that definitely feel free to leave your thoughts and let us know what you think about B-Mickie in this episode. Do you think he eventually will side with Bryant, or do you think that he may still help out Meech at a later time? Definitely let us know your comments. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so let's go to the next question that I have. All right. So we got to talk about this because you said that this was the episode where Charles finally got what he wanted. So we need to talk about Charles finally cheating on Lucille in this episode. Um, and obviously, we saw what happened. He gets invited over. Obviously, there's a retreat that Lucille goes on. So she's away on that retreat. Meanwhile, Charles gets invited to a party at Mabel's house. And of course, we saw in earlier this season when he was fixing something at Mabel's place, she asked to dance with him. He started dancing. So of course, he comes back to this party, dance. As he says, I want to blow off some steam. And so I figured I might as well come to this party. And oh yeah, he definitely did more than that at the party. So he hooks up with Mabel, comes home, still is thinking about that moment of hooking up with her. And then of course Lucille comes in, and we also probably should mention Lucille obviously was still suspicious of him messing around with the lady in the choir. I believe it was sister Sister Riley. Sister Riley. She was still very suspicious of him having something with her. And then, of course, she confirmed, no, I haven't messed with Charles. I don't do any of that stuff. I did it in the past. I messed around in the past, but I'm a changed woman now. So, okay. So obviously she comes in the house, she sees him, and then she reconciles with Charles. And eventually she also sleeps with Charles later in the evening. And then you can see Charles looks very uncomfortable after that, like, because he has a bit of a guilty conscience. So I wanted to ask your thoughts, Dana, on where do you stand with this relationship after this episode? Are you supportive of Charles, or do you still think Charles did wrong by cheating in this episode?
Okay, so one, I have to say something really quickly. I am a terrible human being, so you can judge me based on that. And this is a show, and I like drama, so give me no morals. With this thing, I was very excited because you can see the fracture in their relationship starting to chip away. And this was not like a I love you kind of affair. This was more of I'm frustrated, I'm tense, I need to, like he said, blow off steam. And this was more, wouldn't even say emotional, but a reactionary kind of cheating. It wasn't something that, it's going to be like, we're long lost lovers and we must run away together. You're my true love. It wasn't that at all. You can see that he regretted what happened with his wife. Now, the part that I'm confused with was when he went to finally sleep with his wife, the same, hour or two after sleeping with Mabel. Be careful,
Yep.
women. Be really careful. That whole thing was an ad for STDs. So I just so when he did do the business with his wife, which came across as just really sad, but when he did do what he did, my question was this out of guilt, or was this out of I really love my wife, let me stay on this path, let me finally listen to her and give her what she wants? and let's forget what's happening again, what happened previously. So that's what I just slightly don't understand. And I'm pretty sure that later in the episodes, we will get this. But here's the interesting thing. I interviewed Christine Horn, who is the actress who plays Mabel. And she stated she will be sticking around, which means that Charles, has opened, he opened a can of the worms. And this woman, I don't know if we'll get a fatal attraction situation. I don't know if he'll come running back to her, but she, one, is not who she says she is. And two, she is going to be around and be a pain within this family. So this gives me more excitement to know that this wasn't, as the children would say, a jump off situation, but this is going to be like maybe something deeper that is going to be threaded throughout this season. So I'm excited with that, and I'm excited to see how that ends up testing their marriage. Is the thing that I always wondered about Lucille is if she is the kind of person who will sweep affairs under the rug in order to save face with one, the community, and with her own family. Is she willing to forgive him and stand up and fight for this family? If to say Mabel was to come back and, with the whole boiled rabbit situation, that's a thing from Fatal Attraction. I know some generations don't understand that, but think of Obsessed with Beyonce. So I was wondering how that is going to play off. But like I stated before, I am a terrible person. And I, while not agreeing with Charles, understand what happened. He is very frustrated, and at times you can get in a rut being in a same relationship for as long as he has been with Lucille. The love is still there. It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't like a I love you kind of affair. This was, you have frustrated me. I want to just see what else. It's just, I could just put myself in that person, and that's done and over with, but I still love my family. I think that this, you can view it in a weird way as being a positive because, he loves his wife. He's going to stick by his wife. He automatically felt guilty, so he's not going to do it again. You got it done and over with. Boom, you got it out of your system. So, like I said, it's a very weird thing, but I hope that this is something where he just got out of his system and he can move on from here. So he was frustrated and was aggravated, and the whole from this season and the previous season. And so you're done and over with. You washed your hands, so you can just move on. That's all I want. So I don't know how you feel about that. Again, I'm a terrible person.
So I think those are very good points you said. I will say he did get it out of his system. I don't believe that Mabel has got it out of her system
Well,
because
she got it out once.
well, yeah, but we saw her reaction after it was over, like. So I think, and again, this is their neighbor, so obviously she is definitely going to still be around, and that's why it's a bad situation, because you mess with somebody that literally lives right next door to you. That's a very risky
That's tacky.
situation. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I will say this: I understand the frustration in which that, as you said, Charles had, but I think he had to know something was going to potentially happen if he went to that party. He had to
Well,
know
he
that he could
knew.
potentially get tempted. And then we had this other scene of the random woman that comes up to him and touches him on the behind as well. It's like, yeah, you knew at that point. Yeah, I don't know if I should be at this party, but hey,
But he felt
he was there.
desired for 1 second. He felt like he
Yes.
was desired. You have two women
Yep.
squeezing on you. Ooh, look at me, special.
Yep.
It's a little tickly.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what
I
he
don't think
wanted from
that's all
his
he wanted
wife.
from his wife. Yeah.
That's all he wanted from his wife since earlier in this season he wasn't getting it. So we understand that, but there will be repercussions for this particular incident. I look forward to seeing what happens. I do like that they built this up over time, and then again we get to the middle point of the season, and then you see, oh, well, now a major conflict happens. So I look forward to seeing what happens from here for sure. And I'm very curious to see if Pastor Swift decides to step in and give his advice to Charles or Lucille if he's going to get knocked out, like Charles said he would knock him out a couple weeks ago. So I look forward to seeing what happens with that too.
And also, she kind of just, because I'll post up the interview, but to kind of just some things that really stuck out with this is that it was hurt people that she wanted to state. And that she comes from a past where she has done this before. So once she sees that someone is unhappy within their marriage, she pounces in order to get something from herself. So she saw Charles as an open opportunity. And the thing is that with the difference that you've seen with Charles and Charles and Lucille. Lucille is always, when we've seen her outside, especially in church, has like that shield, that armor with her. That is, she's this strong, independent woman, and this is my husband. And you can see Charles doing the complete opposite. Remember how he was getting all fancy and jiggy and stuff when he was in the church with the women? It is very easy to read when there is that tension between the two. And remember that scene where she's cursing out the congregation and he's just not really being supportive? Even if you just held her hand, you may not agree with what she said, but have that show of unity. And that wasn't displayed. So it's very easy for outside forces to come in and break in that marriage. So that is what he allowed Mabel to do by not even showing that they are a united force. So tacky all around.
I agree. So I mean, we'll see what happens from here. But obviously, marriage is in trouble. Perhaps if there was a better communication between them, a willingness to talk about these issues and work together, then this stuff wouldn't have happened. But you know, we'll see what happens. I will say though, yes, it's very dangerous to have the neighbor next door now going to be wanting to get close to you again. So I don't know what's going to happen with that, but I look forward to seeing what happens next.
And I wonder if she knows, because remember, he was all lovey dovey all of a sudden. She came and she apologized. And it wasn't like, I'm going to fake a reaction to your apology to be lovey dovey. It was just a sudden switch.
You see, that's a very good point because I couldn't tell that she knows, at least not yet. But I kind of feel like she may know in the next episode if the way based on how he reacts to certain situations. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. But I didn't feel as though she knew right at that moment because she kept thinking Sister Riley, that's the girl, that's the woman he been messing around with. She probably wouldn't even have suspected the neighbor. So it's going to be quite a shocking revelation to her when she does find out. I know that much.
See, red herring. So give me my B-Mickie red herring. Yay.
Yes. Definitely. All right. Well, yeah. Once again, if you're watching the show, you're liking this discussion, definitely leave your thoughts on this particular storyline as well, because I'm very curious to hear what everybody thinks about all this stuff that's happening in the show right now. So the next question I'm going to go to, and this is the one that now this may anger some people. I don't know what the reaction is. I don't know what the reaction is going to be about this. Obviously, if you watch the show, definitely let us know in the comments section what you thought. But we have to talk about Lamar in this episode, in particularly the final scene of Lamar visiting Lucille, and he is about to, pull out his gun and shoot her, and then she stops and says a prayer, and that's enough for him to leave. Now prior to that, we did see in this episode that he did try to go visit Monique and try once again to reconcile that relationship and was unsuccessful. But we do find out that that their daughter Zoe has been sent away because of all this stuff that has been happening between him and Meech. So the question I want to ask you, as well as the people listening to this podcast, is do you think that Lamar can change based off of what happened in this episode? So Now, I'll go first, Dana. Then I'll have a couple of thoughts to expand upon my question.
So what had happened is Lamar is a person who is the product of the streets. And I'm not saying that no one can be changed from their environment. I'm not saying nature versus nurture. I'm not. But he is very much a product of where he came from. And he is not given the ability, he is not given an opportunity to see other paths. And sometimes with some people, you have someone who, even if you was to change their scenery, they're still the same way. And they're going to still be that same mentality. And I feel that Lamar is so embedded in the mentality of which and the person that he is not going to change ever. So this incident with a prayer thing, I do not see this as all of a sudden I'm going to go walk into church, I'm going to change a man, hallelujah, I don't want to kill no more, give my life to Jesus. That is not going to happen. I feel that what happened with Lucille is something that we have seen in real life before. Lucille is a woman who has always been about faith. She's always been about God, spirituality, whatever other words you want to name it. She, within her, seems that she is always invested in God and that God is her protector and that God will protect her and her family. And what we have seen with that is how she prayed over Lamar. It softened his heart, not towards Meech and Terry, but it softened his heart towards her. And that we have seen that happen in real life on many news stories where we've had one was a male who came into a school to shoot up the school, and the woman at the desk came in and said, let me pray. She said, I was just overcome by the Spirit. Let me come and pray with you. And she spent that whole hour or so just praying with him. And he walked out to school. And we have had multiple accounts of that happening. And so I really thought that this was a really great demonstration of the power of spirituality, prayer, religion, however words you want to say it. I don't know what's safe anymore. Don't cancel me. But the power of prayer in that situation. Lamar, again, he's going to be who he is. If you listen to how Alvin, talks to him, he talks to him as if he is that product of that situation. He never says, hey man, let it go. Let me teach you about this, because Alvin is also a product of his environment as well. So when you're surrounded with people who are a product of their environment, you're all going to end up thinking the same way. And then just going off from a viewer standpoint, I don't want Lamar to change because I just kind of like him the way he is. He is the ultimate kind of villain of this story that you just cannot kill at this point. And so for him to kind of be who he is and that roughness to him, I fuels once again Meech and Terry. And we have to go back to the Batman Joker situation. One doesn't survive without the other. Remember, without Batman, there is no Joker origin story. That constant fuel, they learn from each other. So from just a viewer standpoint, I want to be selfish and keep Lamar the way that Lamar is, so that we can continue to have this villain who's legit, you're terrified of him. And what's really interesting with this episode was he loves his daughter no matter what. And we've seen this from season 1 to season 2. It's always been about his daughter. But he was interesting is she sent him away. She sent the daughter away in order to protect her because of what was going on with the retaliation and Lamar and Meech and people getting shot up. Remember the drive-bys that were happening? So she wanted to send him away. But his thing was send her back so she's known what it's like to be raised by a father. A girl needs her father. I wonder if he was acting selfish on this, or does he genuinely think that she cannot survive or she won't become the full woman that she can be without her father being there. So I don't know if this is where the only change that we see with Lamar is that his ego is becoming even more bigger from the conversation that he had with Al. Remember, take back what's yours. His daughter is also his. So is that also what's meant by I want my daughter by my side? She is mine, as opposed to any person, especially when you're involved in this lifestyle where anyone could get shot by accident on purpose. Um, he's not going to be like send her away. And this also makes me think if she does return, will she end up being killed by accident? Because remember, the thing that I kind of love about Starz, and even though this is not connected at all to the Powerverse, we always have an innocent. And I wonder if she is going to be the role of the innocent.
Well, I think if that was to happen, um, that'd be very tragic. Definitely will change the circumstances for all three people. It will change circumstances for obviously Monique, Lamar, and it will also impact Meech as well. So that's why I when we spoke last week about the other fact that Monique is starting to mess around with drugs again, if that would have some type of lingering impact on that relationship as well. Now, obviously, that didn't happen in this episode, although you did see Meech had a conversation with her about that in this episode again. So, and Terry was concerned when he heard as well that she was doing this. So I don't know if they're going somewhere with that. I guess we have to wait and see. But I do agree with what you said about Lamar. Uh, One thing I did mention last week is that even though this character is perceived as the villain, you like to see him do ridiculous stuff. Like I said, he was very reckless in last week's episode, and I have to say I was very entertained though. I was entertained. But again, you do also realize that this character is three-dimensional in the sense that he does have motivations. He still wants to get back his family, although he does not go about it the correct way. Um, and it makes you wonder if he is going to try and at least attempt to get that back. Still, after this episode, I feel like he is still going to attempt to get it back, even though he was unsuccessful in talking to Monique and really getting through to her in this episode. I kind of feel like he's going to still be persistent to try to, bring that relationship back into the fold. But as a character, yes, we like to see the enjoyment of him going back and forth with Meech as well as Terry. So I kind of feel like, yeah, obviously, what we do know in real life from based on the documentary, the character based off the Lamar is still alive. Meech is still alive. So obviously, we cannot. I don't believe they're going to change any of that, but they will at least give us a lot of exciting back and forth encounters and battles between these two people. So, but yeah, I agree pretty much with everything you said. I don't really think that he's going to change per se, but I definitely think he's still going to try to make sure he gets back in his kid's life and tries to get close to Monique. But I don't know what's going to happen. And again, I think something happening to their daughter would definitely impact that relationship. So we'll see what happens.
I will say, and this is me kind of wanting drama, I was really upset that um, Lucille didn't die because you have to understand when she opened that door, I scrumped the biggest scream I've ever screamed because that was like an oh my god moment. And for her, and I understand the power of prayer, yay, amen, but just for that dramatic scene of how that could have went down, and if she killed um the mama, and then the daughter was on the phone trying to get Terry or Meech, one of the two, and he heard that gunshot, and then you ended that episode right there, and then you went on break. Oh my God, that would have been amazing because that again completely changes the circumstances of everyone and it heightens it up and it's blood war at this point once you kill the mama and then what happens with Charles being a single dad and then you have the daughter, but they didn't go that route, but a part of me really wanted her to die. I love the character,
But
but that death would have been even better.
I do agree that would have been quite shocking. It would have been an excellent way to end the show for like a break. Um,
Mhm.
I agree with that 100%. But I will say this: that at the end of the day, I, I was a little disappointed that if something didn't happen in that scene, that was going to be like him sending a message to Meech and Terry, because then when even when the sister calls them, it's like Terry is talking about, oh, we got to go. These guys are 10 hours away from Detroit. They're not nowhere near, Detroit at the moment. It's going to take them a while to get back. So that's why I was kind of like, I laugh a little bit with that. But I understand, obviously, you're fearful. But obviously, yes, if they heard a gunshot, then I think that would definitely, it would leave the audience on the edge of the seat wondering what happens next. I mean, we're still wondering what happens next, but the fact that it ended the way it did, I was expecting something else to happen even more dramatic to make you really you be anxious to see what happens next week. So I will say, yes, I agree. It probably could have took a much more effective turn if that happened. But I guess there's some other stuff that does happen, I guess, in the next episode, I would assume. So, but
I
I
don't
haven't
know,
seen it, so
but
I can't say anything because I haven't seen it. Most of us haven't seen it, so we have to wait and see what happens episode 6.
yes, very much true.
Yeah.
But I wanted them to go completely full Mayor of Kingstown, season 2, episode 2 on that house, but they didn't do that. Maybe one day. There are other episodes.
Oh yeah, but I am sure of one thing. I am sure that when Meech and Terry do return, I'm pretty sure that Charles, he is going to be livid. He's going to have something to say to both of them. Lucille too, but Charles especially since he was not there when this happened. So that
But
yeah.
see, that would have been excellent because then it would have shown the guilt that he had because he decided to go stick things in holes that he shouldn't have stuck things in. So that would have that if they do that and they do show like the guilt and what been Mabel, the fact that he came in with it. This is why I wanted Mabel, not Mabel. I wanted Lucille dead, but it would be really interesting if they do show that guilt and the things that could have been avoided had he not had that affair or quickie. Is it even a fair? It's not even an affair, is it?
I would say, well, if it continues, I would say, but I would still say it's a, cheating.
Yeah,
I mean, to
cheating.
say
Cheating
he,
and an affair is like carried out.
yeah, absolutely. But we'll see, because like I said, it's not over. I mean, Charles may think it's over, but obviously, Mabel has other plans for him. So I look
Hmm.
forward to seeing what happens next after that.
Hmm. And then also, what happened with the taxi business? Bring that back too. Just random thoughts.
Yeah, that's a mess. They have a lot of stuff they have to worry about. The business, of course, as you mentioned earlier in the show, Denise, she is being represented by Monique, who was acting as her lawyer. So and again, that's a very important thing here because the fact that they again mentioned that Monique has started messing with drugs to an extent, just because she feels that she's under a little bit of stress. Uh, yeah, they need to be careful. So I mean, I'm curious to see what happens, but yeah, it's just a lot of things happening in the show right now. So that's what makes it exciting and interesting and makes you want to watch and see how the storyline progresses week after week. So yeah.
Agree completely.
So on that note, those were the main questions that I had. Was there anything else that you wanted to talk about from this episode that we didn't touch
I
upon
just
yet?
wanted to highlight really quickly. I've never been to Atlanta. I heard that we've seen the culture of Atlanta through other shows. Those were the most saddest strippers I think I have ever seen. We're we. This is when we needed that P Valley crossover because they weren't doing nothing on that pole. It was just
I
there.
well see, I agree. I guess the only excuse that I would have is because this is the 1980s. Maybe it wasn't that wild and crazy with the dancing at that time. I mean, I don't know. I don't know,
You
so I
mean
can't
to tell
say.
me nobody in the 80s couldn't like at least follow the music? It was just sad. It was just like, mm, like, give me something. Hip movement, some shaking. No, wait. So it was the 80s? It wasn't the 90s yet, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
So this was before Dr. Luke and them. Because I'm trying to find
Uh,
out when was the birth of twerk.
I'm not 100% sure. Maybe it was before Luke. And if there's anyone in the comments that knows, definitely
Yeah,
let us know.
it was
But
before Luke.
I,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, but I just my thought is that the dancers definitely. I don't think they were that evolved as to how they are now. I mean, that's just my guess. I wouldn't be an expert on that because I don't go to the strip club and stuff like that. But I mean, I don't know. I do believe though nowadays it's way different than it was back then. But yeah, they probably needed to highlight that a little bit more. But I will say the people scamming with the dice games and all that other stuff. Oh, that is 100% perfect representation of Atlanta because everybody has some type of scam in Atlanta. It feels like to some certain extent, especially with playing games and trying to take your money. So at that, I think they've captured perfectly because I've been in Atlanta for more than 10 years. So I know, yes, that some of that stuff is pretty accurate.
Right. And also, I think it would have been really nice to actually see the retreat and to see the jealousy kind of build up more with Lucille and the woman that he thought that was cheating with Charles. I just personally would have liked to seen that more. And then what was really interesting was that when they was having their argument, because remember he didn't go to retreat right then and there, I would have like, well then I'm not going either. But then again, that was to show the level of religion and faith that Lucille did have. I'm going to carry on with my Jesus. I may not have my husband there, but I got my Jesus with me. So I did appreciate that part. But what was really interesting was that the whole thing of Charles being angry was that he was saying the family is falling apart. Oh, you want to go on your retreat instead. And from what I have seen so far, we've never seen Charles actually come to Lucille to address the fact that the family is falling apart. He has ran to the other woman to be like, oh, look, this is what I don't like. Or, I would have walked out of church too. Again, you're showing your business to the world as opposed to coming to your wife and sitting down and saying, our family is falling apart. What can we do to put it together? And so it's just the little grimy things that Charles is doing. And this is again why I flip flop on Charles because I'm a human and I could do that. But I'm flip flopping on Charles and now he's just aggravating my soul. When the more I think about like the little things that he is doing, the little kind of microaggressions. So he's aggravating me right now. But you see, that's how like well written that a character is that I can just flip flop and then be angry at you and realize that you're terrible. So that was one of the things that stuck out.
I agree, and I will also admit that I am a fan of Russell Hornsby. So obviously he's supposed to, what he does in this episode is not good, ladies and gentlemen. We have to say it's not good to cheat. That's the message of this particular episode. But I like the actor, so I like that they're giving him more material to work with in the show right now. So I look forward to seeing how things evolve from here. But there's definitely going to be a lot of drama between Mabel and Lucille in the immediate future.
Right. And also we got a little insight into Lamar's history, the fact that his mother died when he was a kid. That also shaped the hardness of Lamar.
Mm-hmm.
So I would have loved to learn more about how he was raised. And when did Alvin step into the picture? Because if you look at it, Alvin is kind of, even though Lamar views Alvin, he seems to view him as his equal, but not equal enough. Like, I respect you to the point where I'm not going to kill you. But if you ever cross that line one day, I might have to kill you. It'll break my heart. Situation. So I just really wish that I knew more about the dynamic in the relationship between Alvin and Lamar, because Alvin is the only one who can either build him up or tear him down. and he allows that. He listens to him, even going back with just a little stuff with the colonoscopy in the bag and the poop. But he's actually listening to him. Remember, he was the one who built him up. Because remember, Lamar was like sad and depressed and full of poop and couldn't burp. And then he listened to Alvin, and that's when he was like, King Kong ain't got nothing on me. And he went out and was like all great and powerful and started killing people with his bare hands.
Yeah. Well, I agree. I hope that they do expand upon that relationship. And yes, I do want to remind people you did interview Donnell Rollins last week, so that interview is on the channel. I would encourage you all to check that because there are some hints in there as to where things could go in the show. And obviously, going into whatever happens this season, maybe going into season 3, maybe we will see more of that relationship develop. But as for the comment you said about Lamar earlier, I know that there are going to be a ton of BMF spinoffs. Hopefully, maybe we will get a Lamar story spinoff and find out his backstory more about that. That could happen because I know a lot of people like the character. I think it's possible that could happen, but I guess it all depends on however Starz wants to, whatever they want to invest in as far as these additional shows.
And there will be a Lamar interview soon.
Oh, there will be. Okay. Looking forward to seeing that for sure.
Me too. He's British and he moisturizes in real life.
That's good. That's be very, very, very interesting interview. So yeah, on that note, was there anything else that you wanted to discuss about this episode before we get ready to wrap up?
No, just more of the fact that Terry and Meech need to start thinking together instead of trying to do things separately. So just, think together. That's all. And it also was really interesting with Pint. I like Pint because Pint is quiet. Pint is an observer. He's not someone who is showy and like, look at me, I'm Pint. He's in the corner checking you out, and he'll learn everything about you before you even know his name. So, yay, Pint.
I do like the introduction of that character. I'm very curious to see what happens down the road with him. Yeah, overall it was great. And again, and Terry learned a new skill. Obviously, he had to give up his car to learn the new skill, but that's something that will be beneficial to them moving forward, I would assume. So, looking forward to seeing where all of that goes for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I believe that concludes our discussion for episode 5, Moment of Truth. Before we get out of here, Dana, did you have any shout outs that you would like to give?
Once again, thank you for everyone who has been watching us, who's been listening to us. Also, check out all of our interviews that we have with the BMF cast. We will be having weekly interviews, so when that episode drops of that major character scene or something of plot that happens, we will have interviews that follow up, and we'll get more insight into what is going on, especially what we have previously. We have Christine Horn, who plays Mabel. Again, she is not going away. She clearly stated that. This is a situationship, whether or not Charles wants it or not. We also have Donnell Rollins, is to learn more about Alvin, and we'll have more coming up in the previous and the other previous in the future episodes as well. So thank you very much to Starz for that. And also you can check out our other interviews. It'll be better streamlined come in the coming weeks, but we're getting there, and it's going to be really great. And thank you once again for listening to us and paying attention to our thoughts and our hopes.
Sounds good. I want to give a shout out to you, Dana, for putting together all these excellent interviews with the cast. Definitely thank you to Starz for allowing you to be able to do these interviews and for allowing us to check out the show as well. Definitely want to give a shout out to everybody commenting, some of our regular commenters, such as Jeremiah Lutumba, just all the people that normally check out our shows. We appreciate your continued support. I do want to remind you all that we are in the month of February now. You know that snowfall is returning, so definitely stay tuned to the main Koalition channel because we will be covering that show at the end of the month. But until then, there's a lot of other shows we are going to be covering on this channel too. So I would encourage you again, BMF. We will be talking about BMF. We will be talking about Bel Air in the future as well. So definitely stay tuned as well on here. Consider subscribing. Definitely like and leave a comment if you enjoy the conversations. And on that note, we hope that you all have a great weekend. We will talk to you all next week.